Hey, and welcome to another video. This video is on symbolism, and symbolism occurs when a simple thing in a book or movie represents or stands for a big idea. And when that happens, the simple thing is a symbol for the big idea. So let's just forget about literature for a minute and let's take a look at this, which is the symbol for poison. All right, all over the world, the skull and crossbones is a symbol for poison. And the reason why it's used is because it's immediately recognizable as poison when you see the skull and crossbones. And that's the power of a symbol. When something here, I mean, it's just a skull and crossbones, it doesn't really mean anything in and of itself, but when you see it, you know it means or stands for or represents poison. And that you should be very careful. And this is what a symbol is. And there's lots of symbols in the world, but this is just one example. Okay, so let's continue with this idea of symbolism. And here are some examples. Like a simple thing can mean a big idea, like brick walls, locked gates. Those are simple things. Autumn leaves, storms, dark clouds, darkness, nighttime. And these are simple things, but they can mean big ideas. Like a brick wall can mean an inability to reach goals. Or darkness can mean fear or the unknown. Okay? And so it's when one simple thing is a representation of a big idea that's in a story. And that's also called a theme, which I'm going to get to. So why do writers use symbolism? Why is there symbolism? So just read this with me. The student read this document and realized the truth within it as the sky brightened behind him with the dawn of a new day. Okay, did you recognize the two instances of symbolism in that sentence? Dawn is a symbol for a new beginning, and brightening light is a symbol for increasing knowledge, because light is a symbol oftentimes in literature for understanding or knowledge. And because of the symbolism in that sentence, its meaning runs deeper and richer than the words on the surface. And this is why writers use symbolism, because symbolism makes stories more meaningful and more interesting in fewer words. And that's it. That's the reason why. And we're going to explore that a little bit more now. I want to mention something. There's a related term called metaphor, which we've looked at in another document and in another video. And metaphor is related to symbolism because metaphor uses symbols. And you can download this and read this. Metaphor helps you better understand a single person or one thing. And symbolism helps show the big concepts under the surface of a story. Okay? So here's an example. If you would write that a man was sitting in a green chair when he played with his new baby, and that later he saw a cat with kittens under a branch with green leaves, you might say that the color green in the story is a symbol for birth and life, okay? Because the author has put in green chair, okay, and then has mentioned green leaves, and both of these things are right near a baby and really a human baby and kittens. And this green, it's there for a reason, folks. Okay, the author put in this green business to try to illustrate the point and to try to make the story richer. And so that's the difference between metaphor and symbolism. All right, so let's continue with the whole idea of symbolism. Let's take a look at it visually. This is a brick wall, okay? But in a story, it can be much more than a brick wall. It can mean a barrier, an obstacle, or blocked goals. So here you go. Let's say there's a story about a guy named Frank, and he's leaning against a brick wall. What does that mean? Is it a symbol? Well, not necessarily, unless you find out that Frank has been trying to find a job for 6 months, but nobody will give him a chance because he's an ex-convict. Okay, so now he's leaning against a brick wall. Do you see how that's a little bit deeper now? No one will give him a chance. He can't find a job. He can't get a career. He can't make a living. Okay, you see the brick wall connection? It's a blocked goal. Okay, so the brick wall symbolizes blocked goals or barriers or obstacles, especially if the idea of a brick wall is brought up again and again in the story. Okay, let's take another visual sort of example. Here is a dying autumn leaf. So what could it symbolize? Well, I mean, the leaf is dying. So let's take this story. You're watching a movie where Akita and Erica, two teenagers, are walking through the city toward a park. And after a while, the conversation turns to Kita's sick grandmom. And Kita tells Erica that her grandma might pass away soon. And at that moment, the girls enter the park or there are autumn leaves falling from the trees. Now, why did the movie director have autumn leaves falling at that moment? I mean, the director didn't have to have them walking through autumn leaves, but the director did, and the reason why maybe is that the dying leaves are symbols of death in general, and that in that movie, let's say, whenever there's a talk of death or whenever there is death, there's also leaves, dying leaves, autumn leaves. Okay, so there's the symbol: is you have a dying leaf be a symbol of death, and also the cycle of life. Okay? So let's continue on. How to identify it? All right, now the first step to identify symbolism is you have to think about what the story or movie is really about deep down. Okay? Now, most stories or movies are about bigger concepts than just the plot, and the plot is just what happens. Okay? If you tell a story, there's usually a moral or a point or a lesson. And by the way, this is called the theme of the story, okay, or the themes within the story. Okay, so let's take a look at this story right here. A sad rain from a gray sky fell on Patrick as he trudged home from school. "I gotta go, Patrick," she had said just a few minutes ago, her eyes averted, her body turning away from him, as if avoiding something distasteful, but it was only him standing there when she turned, without a further word, without a smile. "I gotta go," was all she said. He had tried to talk to her again, and again she had looked left and right when he spoke, not looking at him as she once did, not smiling as she once had, and he searched for the reason, fearful of discovering the answer. He turned the corner, the sky seeming to get darker. A cold drop of rain ran down his back, and he pulled the collar of his jacket tighter. First Ryan didn't show up yesterday for cards, with no text, no reason, no nothing, and now she was acting weird, distant, uncomfortable. It wasn't a coincidence. He suddenly knew why, and a terrible sadness gripped him. It was because of what happened last Sunday. Last Sunday, at 2:35 in the afternoon, when it was raining, and thunder shook the house, and the police came and arrested his father for child abuse. Okay? So there's that story. Notice the dark clouds. Notice the rain. All right, so now think about that passage. Now you could talk about the plot and the fact that Patrick, likes a girl who isn't named, and you could talk about what happened, but let's go deeper. What's the story really about? The story is really about sadness and struggling with his family, in particular his father. This story is much more than just about a jacket collar. Okay, it's about a guy who is struggling with loneliness and with sadness and with against his father's actions. And that's really what's going on deep in this story. And those are called the themes. Okay? Now you might feel differently. You might read the story and think it's about something else, and that's fine. But just for purposes of explanation, let's just say that the themes in the story are sadness and a struggle with family. Okay? Let's just say that it's really about sadness and a struggle with family. So let's move on. So let's identify the symbols. Now that you've identified the themes, you ask yourself this: is there anything in the story that comes up or happens over and over again that could represent or be symbols for those themes? Now, what happened in that story over and over again? Rain, raindrops, storms, gray skies. All right? And when something like this comes up over and over again in a story, like colors or weather events or physical objects, that thing's probably a symbol of a theme or a big idea within the story. Okay? So when Patrick was walking home from school, what was happening? It was raining, and the sky was gray, and a cold drop of rain ran down Patrick's back. So, I mean, why did the author make it rain? Why didn't the author make it a clear, sunny day? The reason why is because rain and clouds are a common symbol for darkness and trouble. And the author wanted to make you understand that Patrick's sadness was not just within him, but the author wanted the sadness to be in the sky, on the ground, on the leaves, everywhere. Okay, and that's why there was symbolism in that story, to show that the sadness was much bigger than just from within Patrick. And so now that if you read that story again, do you see how rain is part of the story? I mean, it was raining, and then it was raining, and then even last Sunday when his father was arrested, it was raining and there was a thunderstorm. So throughout this whole story is rain and thunder and storms. And so you're pretty sure. I mean, you're pretty sure that you can be pretty sure, in other words, that the rain and the weather and the storms and the thunder are all symbols of the sadness that Patrick is feeling. Okay, and that's how you identify the symbolism. You think about the themes, and then you see what sorts of stuff comes up over and over again. And it doesn't. Every story does not have to have symbolism. I want you to understand that. Not every story has to have symbolism. And sometimes what will happen is, which is what we're talking about here in step 3, is that sometimes it's clear and sometimes it's not so clear. For example, a wedding ring is a clear symbol of love. I think everybody's going to agree with that a wedding ring is a symbol of love and commitment. And then so is a bouquet of roses on a wedding anniversary. It's a symbol of love. But I mean, what if you read about a story about a little girl growing up in a poor part of New York, and in the story there was a tree next to her apartment. Okay, and the tree came up again and again in the story. And I mean, over and over again, this tree came up, and the author didn't write about the tree by accident. She put the tree in the story on purpose. So what could it symbolize? By the way, this is taken from a great book called A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. It's by an author named Betty Smith. Very good book. And so what is that tree symbolizing? It could symbolize many things. You could say it symbolizes growth. It symbolizes life or survival. And your opinion about what it symbolizes might be different. And so what you need to do is talk about it, think about it, and talk about it with other people. And when you do this, you'll gain a newer, deeper understanding of what you read. Okay? And then at the end is an assessment where you have 5 true or false questions. You need to circle true or false for each of these. And then define symbolism by describing it in writing. And then here is a story, a very short story. And then you've got to answer the correct you circle which statement is correct, A, B, C, or D. Just circle which statement is correct. Read all of them and circle the one that is completely correct. And if you get 10 out of 10, then you are on your way to becoming an expert on symbolism. So definitely, when you read things, look at the things that are underneath the story and try to connect to see if there are any things in the story that might be symbols of the big idea and the big themes within a story. And I encourage you to do that, and you'll get a much deeper understanding of what you read. And I hope this video helped on symbolism. And thanks a lot for watching, and I will talk to you again soon in another video.